You know, I actually have ended up with quite a lot of Beach Boys albums over the years, especially in the last year or so. There's been a couple that have come into my collection on vinyl. But there have been two albums by the Beach Boys that I've avoided over the years, and I had the opportunity to pick it up on CD 16, 17 years ago. Both of the albums you see here together, but I didn't do so because, as a lot of you know, these albums have taken probably the worst critical beating of any Beach Boys albums that have ever been out there. And when I read the critical analysis, it kept pointing to weak material. And since the Beach Boys are known for their singing and their writing, I really didn't want to know anything about it. But when I located these two albums recently, I decided to pick them up. This one was actually in a dollar bin in a antique store that sells vinyl in the city of Rockland. And this one I found at the Bull Moose in Brunswick, Maine, the first Bull Moose to open up in the state, by the way. And the albums that are here are the M.I.U. album, which was released in 1978, and the L.A. Light album from 1979. And this is not a review so much as it is how I've looked at the albums, having listened to them myself. This particular album here is every bit a great Beach Boys album in terms of the early 60s. It sounds basically like an early 60s kind of Beach Boys album, you know, very, very surf influenced. There's the group right there. If you can see them, you know, Mike Love, the Wilsons, Carl, Dennis, Brian, Al. And the liner notes look like this. There's a lyric sheet. And the albums were released on Reprise Records, Reprise depending on how you pronounce them, and Brother, which was the Beach Boys custom imprint at the time. And that's how that album comes packaged. These albums are very well packaged for how I got them. You know, they both have the original inner sleeve on them. When you open up this album, this one has more pictures of the band playing live. This is Brian, what looks like bass. There's more pictures of the group on the back. And the album has the same Brother Reprise label on it, so I don't need to show you that. Now, in terms of the music on these records, both of them have their highlights. On this album, one of my favorite songs is from the first side, Hey Little Tomboy. You know, it kind of reminds me of what would have happened if the Beach Boys and Todd Rundgren had gone in the studio and recorded together. And Match Point of Our Love is actually kind of a little, you know, I guess at the time you could say a soft rock shuffle, you know. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Pablo Cruz for some reason, or Player, or a group like that. On the L.A. Light album, one song I like is a very atmospheric number called Good Timin'. Another number I like is Love Surrounds Me, which again is somewhat more of a sophisticated, soft yacht rock feeling song that doesn't sound like other Beach Boy records. But one song I love on here, and it might be controversial to some people because it's a key reason why this album is hated. These albums were released during the disco era, and they do a version of Here Comes the Night, which was originally from their 1967 album, Wild Honey. And what this version of Here Comes the Night does You know, it adds the 4 on the floor disco beat. It adds vocoder, but it really emphasizes the Beach Boys harmonies in a really, really, really wonderful way. And it just updates the original, and I don't think it spoils the album at all. To me, the M.I.U. album is consistently the stronger of the two. This one is very good, but I don't think that it flows together quite as well as this album does. But if you see them out in the wild, I wouldn't pay a whole lot for them if you do. But if you see them out in the wild and you've heard all the same terrible reviews of these albums that I have, don't give them a slip. You know, people who have lived with the Beach Boys, who have heard Pet Sounds and songs like, you know, Help Me Rhonda, In My Room, and Do It Again, time after time after time, who have gotten into albums like Holland and Love You from the 70s. If you've had that level of experience with the Beach Boys and don't just know them from the oldies you hear on the radio, you will have a lot to get from these albums. These are actually quite underrated. They're not the place to go if you're just getting into the Beach Boys, but if you already have familiarity with them, again, at the risk of being repetitious, by all means, pick these up if you can find them. And, you know, as summer is wrapping up, in a few days here, I'm thinking of the Beach Boys a lot. I usually think of them at the beginning of summer, but, you know, the Beach Boys actually have an album called Keeping the Summer Alive, and there's a thing called Indian Summer, especially where I live in Maine. And so, you know, as long as the weather is hot and it's beautiful out, I'll be thinking of the Beach Boys and their summery music. And there's plenty of that on here if you're looking for it. Enjoy your music. Enjoy the fall to come. Enjoy the summer that's still here. Peace.